Hi, this is Nathan. I'm glad you could join us for the Wad Fam Chalk Pod, a place of humor, analysis, and excitement. But don't take my word for it. You can find out for yourself on today's episode of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.
Is the dead horse we're beating one of those spotted ones from Minecraft?
Oh.
Because that is what your design is on the Old West Fun World shirt.
Yes.
Because Michaela asked your favorite kind of horse.
She asked my... Oh, that's right! Was that what that was for?
Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we're here to talk about episode 309 of Adventures in Odyssey. It's called The Perfect Witness, Part 1.
The episode that does not include Wit, to my understanding.
No.
I mean, not so far. Is
No.
he even on this album?
No, he's not.
Yeah.
This is while he's in the Middle East on an archaeological expedition.
Yes.
There we go.
Certainly not in purgatory fighting for our souls.
No.
That's my headcanon.
It's like the 3 days between Jesus' death and resurrection where he's going through hell.
Yeah, ministering. That's what's happening.
This is a great headcanon. I am here for it.
There's how many albums? I think there's like 6 albums or something.
Yeah, I think it's close to that.
Or maybe it's 5.
Oh
yeah.
Man. All right. Yep. Yeah.
He is God. He can do whatever he wants.
Archaeological expedition. Who's that? Clearly, the man is in hell.
Yeah.
But for a good reason.
He's fighing for us, the
Yeah.
people's champion.
Yeah.
Giving them ice cream? In hell? That doesn't make sense. What's the Newsboys lyric? They don't serve breakfast in hell.
Yep. When the big one finds you, may this song remind you that they don't serve breakfast in hell.
Man, I listened to that song so much as a child.
Oh, I did too. One of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, on Christian radio on a Saturday morning, it was like one of the few things where I was like, the Newsboys.
One of my earliest CDs was Newsboys' Greatest Hits. And it did
Really?
include that song.
Well, it certainly is their greatest. Well, one of them.
So,
And that's been Newsboys Corner. We're back here to talk about Adventures in Odyssey today.
hey, I mean, at least this time our corner was something that everyone listening to also gets.
I hope.
I feel like odds are pretty good for that crossover.
Yeah. I'm tweet at us if you like the Newsboys.
I mean, I don't think I do. I think I did.
I
might still I've still got an attachment to like old Newsboys.
Yeah.
Michael Tate stuff.
No. That can no.
Yeah.
Well, you either die here or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. And the Newsboys might be villains.
I mean, that's true. They did soundtrack 3 God's Not Dead films. And appeared in at least one of them.
The first one, for sure.
First one, yeah.
I don't know if they made a recurring character.
Yep, who knows? Anyways, we're not here to talk about the Newsboys. That'll be on our other podcast, Boys Talk.
Where good Christian boys talk about boy things.
All right. So this we're talking about The Perfect Witness Part 1. I don't remember if you guys remember that, but that's what we're doing. I think Andrew was trying to make the point that it's funny that they used The Perfect Witness for an episode that doesn't have wit in it. I think that's the joke he was making.
Yes.
Before we went off the rails. Anyway, it's an episode written and directed by Paul McCusker. It aired April 8th of 1995. And was episode 10 on album 23, Twists and Turns, an album that we recently talked about because Preacher's Kid is on it.
Yeah, this is a really, rich era of the show. Not to beat a dead horse, but we've been covering
really
bangers
beating
right
dead horses.
Yeah, it's so much fun,
That is
especially when they're good dead horses.
Right, like I imagine that's one of the games at Old West Fun World is it's whack-a-mole, except the moles don't pop up. There's just a horse there.
It's just a horseshoe on a stick. Oh no!
Buy our Old West Fun World merch. More on that after the break. We'll
Brought
talk
to you
about
by
it at the end of the
Burger
show.
World.
Burger World. Nope, I can't. You nailed it, and then I tried to.
It's okay.
Yeah, what a bummer. So, yeah, this is a good 3-episode arc.
Yeah,
I'm
I
very
don't remember
excited.
it. Yeah, I'm very excited.
I remember the broadest strokes. Like, I remember the point of these episodes. I don't remember any of the details, and so I'm very excited to uncover the mystery as it happens.
And it's a very good, like, at least this episode is a very good beginning to a mystery.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no, I would agree. So yeah, and then cast for this episode. So we have 2 recurring cast members, which would be Will Ryan as Eugene, Pamela Hayden as Katrina. Those ones are, nice, easy, clean. We know those people. We've talked before about Kenneth Mars, who plays Fred Holstein and Captain Quinn. He voiced both of them in Kidsborough Part 1.
Oh.
He also is just a big voice actor. He's got like 228 IMDb credits, was Triton in The Little Mermaid, Grandpa Longneck in The Land Before Time, and a guy named Otto Mancusser in Malcolm in the Middle. I haven't seen that, but it's a large recurring role, and people like that show. So
There you go.
Additionally, we have Natalie Babbitt playing Jenny Roberts. Jenny Roberts is the kind of our protagonist for these episodes. She was also in 9 other episodes between 92 and 96 as this blind character in the town of Odyssey. This is then when stuff starts to get a little bit murky. Mm-hmm. So I think the wiki might have mislabeled some of the cast members, I think. Okay. But I'm going to still credit them as they are credited and then provide a little bit of context each time.
Okay. So
they list Sherry Belgo as Linda Roberts. Mm-hmm. So Sherry Belgo was the voice of Vicky in the Larry Boy cartoon, like not the 2D animated 2D Larry Boy series they did. She was Vicky, who was Anyways, so that's her one IMDb credit, and she is credited on the wiki as playing Linda Roberts, which would be Jenny's mom. Mm-hmm. We then have Vaughn Taylor, who plays detective, or is credited as playing Detective Pat Ethan. Mm-hmm. She was the mom in McGee and Me, another Focus on the Family special.
Yeah.
And she voices Linda Roberts in every other episode that Linda Roberts appears in. So
interesting.
I think my assumption is that Sherry Belgo is actually the voice of Detective Pat Ethan, and Vaughn Taylor is continuing to be the voice of Linda Roberts. Otherwise, they did some really weird casting of like, oh, we'll have the detective played by the person who previously played her mom, and then we'll cast someone new as her mom. That'll make sense, right?
Yeah, this won't be confusing at all.
So it's either poor crediting on the wiki, which I don't know how a lot of that crediting is sourced. I think it is a lot of just kind of like matching up. So easy mistake, no vitriol towards us from to any of the people on the wiki. We obviously respect a lot of what's done there, but
heavily utilize it.
Yes. Oh, I mean, this show would not be as good without the wiki. No. So, anyways, that whole thing is just a little bit weird. And then the additional, so moving on from that, we've got Matt Hurwitz credited as Mike Roberts, who would be Jenny's dad. Matt Hurwitz previously appeared as Mr. Jefferson, and also so that would be Alex's dad, and Dr. William Foster, who is the scientist in the Eugene Returns episodes.
Yeah.
Then we have I credited them as Goon 1 and Goon 2. The wiki has their names, but those will come later. And just when I was taking my notes, I was like, okay, the two people breaking in, we're going to call them Goon 1 and Goon 2, because that'll at least be easy to keep track of.
Yeah.
So Goon 1 is the guy who keeps, who his verbal tick is saying,
Yes.
So that's Goon 1. And he is voiced by, he is credited as being voiced by Tom Williams, who played Barry Lionel in the episodes we just talked about, and was previously the voice of Mike Roberts in every Mike Roberts appearance except for this one. So once again, I assume that
okay,
that he is playing Mike Roberts here, and maybe Matt Hurwitz is playing Goon 1, but the wiki credits it otherwise, and we're open to one of them being, somebody's wrong here.
We're
probably.
Just
It's either us or it's them.
Yeah.
So
in almost every instance,
yes,
of wrongness.
And then we have Robert Spina playing Goon 2, who's the goon who does not constantly say, and then Mark Drury is Officer Spectre, who I'm pretty sure has appeared before. Like, I feel like but we for sure.
Drury has, obviously.
Right. Well, yes, Drury has appeared a lot because he's sound engineer. Captain Quinn is definitely recurring, and I think this is the only time Officer Spectre appears. So,
good to know.
Anyways, this I think important to point out, and we'll be talking about it throughout. But the official guide co-credits Dave Arnold and Mark Drury as the production engineers for this episode.
Okay.
Which I think is great to call attention to, because so much of this episode is dependent on really quality sound design.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, we'll get into it when we talk about kind of what happens in this episode. But yeah, it's so definitely worth giving credit where credit is due.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just another weird. So the official guide and the complete guide both credit Dave Arnold and Mark Drury for all these episodes. The wiki credits Mark Drury for part 3 and Dave Arnold for part 1 and 2. I'm not entirely sure why the delineation there, but just apparently this is the credits episode of the Wad Fam Shock Pod. So
very
I'm just getting that all out there now.
Well, we have a very credit heavy episode, like 1 in every 20, I would say.
Yeah.
Like 1 in 20.
That's fair. Like every once in a while we hit one that is just
loaded.
Right. Well, often when we're starting a new arc, but this is just weirdly just a bunch of characters who either only appear here or we haven't talked about before, or they in the case of the whole Roberts family, we haven't talked about them before, but they've appeared elsewhere. And then with the Holstein, Captain Quinn, we talked about it, but 2 years ago. So
yeah,
just felt it worth bringing up again.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's all I want to hit there. We have a promo for this episode that is just for this episode.
Nice.
So I'm going to go ahead and give that a play.
Coming up next time on Adventures in Odyssey, Holstein's bookstore is robbed and Jenny is taken hostage. When Jenny is released by the crooks, the police must overcome a greater challenge of their only witness being blind. Can Jenny really help bring the criminals to justice, or will she be left standing in the dark? Learn more on the next Adventure in Odyssey.
That seems like a mean joke. It's left standing in the dark.
At least the music's good.
Yeah, and it matches it compared to previously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this episode, we get a Chris intro into like a pretty fun teaser.
Yeah,
then
one of our classic Crintros.
Yeah. That's going to be the name of our crouton brand. Crintros.
Yeah,
the bread-based snack.
You're aware that's the joke we made.
Oh, we've already done that.
Correct.
Great. Thank goodness.
Wow. That's the origin of the crouton snack bit.
Okay. Well, but we've talked about the crouton snack bit
outside. Right. But in the
mic.
show, we talked about it after I jokingly called the Chris intro a Crintro, and then we started on the crouton bit. So
okay, well...
We just accidentally recreated that. I'm so sorry. I also don't know how much of that was left in the episode, so maybe you're only hearing about this now, Shock Squad.
I apologize for nothing. But eating croutons as a snack is important and worth saying. So anyway, this episode begins with Holstein's books, which... just to, get on a rabbit trail real quick, because we've been so on topic. I love Holstein as a character. Yeah. I'm sure we've talked about him before. I think in the Kidsborough episodes.
Correct.
But he is so delightful for me personally, for my history with Odyssey. He's a joke factory, and they always land. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, not always. Most of the
time. Yeah, it's hilarious. The episode starts with him showing the goons, who doesn't know are goons, the true crime section.
Yes!
Which is... It's such quality
this is the
foreshadowing.
Serial podcast.
Like, hey, people who will rob me,
yeah.
Here's where you find... Like, it's the great thing of, like, you realize the goons showed up, we're like, oh, we gotta kill time until like we're ready to do this.
Yeah.
We gotta like scope out this place. So they show up and Holstein's like, oh, what can I help you with today? And Goon 1 stutters and goes just like, true crime.
Yeah. Completely unrelated.
You don't know anything about like criminals and like bank robberies.
But like make sure it's real.
None of this fiction stuff.
Yeah. What's there to learn from fiction, huh? With Holstein's character, there's a lot of like word twisting and things like that. So he says like, I have an exhausting supply instead of an exhaustive supply. He says like, oh, it is my delightfulness to like serve you. So like he just makes all these jokes.
Right. And then Katrina shows up early with her
knapsack or
knapsack.
Very important to note that the K is separate from the actual object,
which is funny. So if we're playing into the like, he's like kind of like this German Dutch stereotype, kind of thing. And so in German, like there's a name that is written Knut, and you would read that in English as nut.
Yes.
But in German, it's Knut. So the K-knapsack kind of works.
Checks out. Okay. Well, and Dylan took 3 years of German. 5 years of German in high school.
It's so much worse than 3.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think it's worse. You know German well.
No.
Enough to function. I was in a foreign country where I didn't speak the language, and I would have given to have at least 1 year of speaking the language.
Fair enough. So Katrina works at Holstein's books, which is canon in the show. We haven't talked about it before, but that's what's going on here. She shows up early for work. She's coming from the college. She drops her knapsack in the back room. And in the back there is the first edition of an Eric Hogarth book. Eric.
Oh, it's Eric? Okay.
It's Eric.
Okay.
Because this is an actual person.
Oh.
An Eric Hogarth book. One of the last 10 in the country. Eric Christian Hogarth was a Danish writer and probably more prominently translator. So he is famous for translating Hans Christian Andersen stuff.
Okay.
Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Little Mermaid, which Fred Holstein starred in as Triton. I have no idea if that's intentional or not, but I'm going to assume sure.
Yes. My audible smile. That's so great. I just, man, just more reasons to love The Little Mermaid, I suppose.
I suppose. He also wrote The Emperor's New Clothes.
Like the book?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hans Christian Andersen did. And then Eric
legendary.
Hogarth translated it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then Jenny comes in, right, to the shop right after they get the book.
Yeah. Yep. Jenny shows up. Holstein calls her his little strudel, which is funny and a little weird.
Yeah.
And
don't think about that too much.
And there's this great thing where Jenny asks Katrina, like, oh, has anything moved around in the shop? And Katrina's like, nope, everything's like the same place it was before, which is like this really nice little subtle setup of her blindness, which she's a pre-existing blind character in the show. Like, she's been in episodes before this. She's well established as that being a character trait. So I like that they don't feel the need to hit you over the head. And then they hit you over the head.
I'm blind. I'm blind. I hate being blind. I'm so blind, and everybody treats me like I'm blind.
Yeah. I paused it to write like, oh, I love the subtle layering that in, and then pressed play.
Yeah.
And Holstein's like, how are you doing? And she's like, okay. And he's like, just okay. And she's like, well, I'm mad because people are like patronizing me, essentially.
Yeah.
Which, to his credit, McCusker, in kind of the background research for this episode and for Jenny as a character, went to a school for the blind in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
And interviewed students there.
Oh. That's great. I'm glad that he did his research.
And one of the things that like kept coming up is this idea that like they were really frustrated with being handled with kids' gloves and kind of talked down to and patronized.
Yeah.
Like they want that to be treated with respect, like every human being.
A mind-boggling concept.
Right. But like I like that he like put in the work to get that info and wrote it in, and like I really appreciate that.
Well, and it's true to the character, and I could totally see that as Jenny, who's like a pretty young character, to feel that way a lot, especially, you know, in the way that she's talked about later in the episode of things that she might be learning in school about being blind and things like that. Like, I, you know, obviously didn't have that experience, and so I can only imagine how different that must be growing up and like kind of like going to special classes and like learning about things, being forced into a public setting where everything is standardized pretty much, and having to have such a specialized education. Yeah, so, you know, she says, just because I'm blind doesn't mean I can't do anything for myself or whatever. And then they're talking about the reading, because she's there to get books because her family reads together. And Holstein's like, oh, you know, I think it's so great that your family reads together before you, you know, in the evening at night. And they just finished the Chronicles of Narnia because, you know, of course, it's Adventures in Odyssey. If they're not reading Chronicles of Narnia, they're not a Christian.
Right. I mean, hey, that's empirically true. I mean, every Christian I know read the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah. Yeah, and every person that died drank water, so water's so bad for you.
Well, there's that. And then they get interrupted because the goons go and lock the door, and Holstein's like, you can't do that during
business hours.
During business hours. And I was like, oh, is that a rule? I never really thought about it. I guess that kind of makes sense.
I only ever thought about it in my manager will get really mad at me if I do that.
Right.
But yes. Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's actually like a law or if that's just the thing, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so the goons are then like, hey, Holstein, like open up the register.
Yeah.
And then the one says to the other, hey, you go into the back. I'm gonna and get the thing.
Yeah.
And they walk back there, and obviously, as the listener, you're like, okay, they're stealing
the book. The fancy book.
However, it takes so long for that to be acknowledged within the show. And I cannot tell, like, I don't know if was it a thing if they were trying to pepper this in so it could be a reveal later? Or did McCusker realize that we all know? Because it's weird how long they hold out on that.
That they were taking the book. Yeah, it's not until like the scene with the cops afterwards where they're like,
and
oh.
I realize he then walks out with the K knapsack to put the money in. But like, there wasn't a set. Like, it was immediately like.
So why would you go into the back if you're robbing the register?
Right. He's clearly getting the book, and they set up like we've got this expensive book. So. Anyways, so yeah, he comes out with the K knapsack that's got the book buried in it, and Holstein starts dumping money into the bag, but then he starts spilling it, and so one of the goons just grabs it and does it for him. Because he's so flustered.
Yeah, he's kind of adorable.
He is. He at one point is like, I don't know how to get the register open if you don't buy anything. You guys want to buy a bookmark?
Yeah. You want to buy a bookmark? They're like, fine, I'll just do it for you.
Yeah. Yep.
And so this is when he trips the silent alarm, I guess.
Right. So yeah, Goon 1, then the goon. He sees the button for the silent alarm.
Yeah.
And is like, oh, what's that button? Holstein's like, oh, I can press it to get Katrina from the back so that she can hear me. And he's like, no, it's a silent alarm. You shouldn't have done that, old man. And then ties him up with packing tape.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I got some string in the back I can get for you. And he's like, nope.
This packing tape will do.
Which they don't duct tape Katrina.
Correct.
Or
this is, yeah.
It's just,
okay. It's because Katrina's a woman, so she's not going to fight back, even though she is way more agile than Holstein.
Oh, that old man?
Yes.
Who tripped a silent alarm. The damage has been done.
Right.
Like, what else is he going to do?
Right. Yep. It's weird that they tie him up, but, whatever.
Well, and then they freak out because they tripped the silent alarm. You shouldn't have done that, old man. Then they, there's a comment about, okay, we got to get out of here now. Is there a cop around back? Like, is there going to be a cop around back? And he's like, there's probably only one cop car around.
Right, they see a cop slowly coming towards them on the street.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, we should, we're going to be surrounded. And they're like, no, it's Odyssey. There's probably one cop.
Yeah.
We'll just go out the back.
Which works, believe it or not.
Yep. And then they're like, right, Jenny. So we've got to find some way to,
if there are, we need an insurance policy.
Yep. So they grab Jenny. And Katrina's like, no, like, I'll go in her, take me instead. And they're like, no, absolutely not. Jenny's the perfect witness. She's blind. Roll credits.
Yeah.
She's blind. She's blind.
Did you know that she's blind? Oh my gosh, I forgot. She's blind. And she can't see. And they bring that up and they kind of... So they sneak out the back.
Yeah, they sneak out the back, and then Katrina lets the police in the front because the goons locked the door.
Yeah.
So she's got
obviously when they didn't tie her up.
Right. And
so that she could
right. And then she opens the door, the police walk in, and the little doorbell thing chimes again, which has this really obnoxious tune, and you just hear Holstein mutter under his breath, I hate those chimes.
Yeah.
And it's so funny.
It's so... Yeah.
I love it.
Especially because the chimes at Wit's End are, so revered.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's important to note that them taking Jenny, the goons, as it were, it was not their plan. They didn't want to take a hostage, and so... in the following scenes when they bring it up, it's very much like it's an improvised act and not a part of the plan.
Correct.
For kidnapping.
No, not at all.
And you get a little bit of that in this scene, but then they actually talk about it in the car later.
Yeah. So they're then in the van. They've got Jenny in the back. They call... One of the goons calls Holstein Mr. Sauerkraut.
Is that racist? I think that's racist.
It
right?
is. It's also hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the Germans were a safe demographic to make fun of.
Andrew, that's my heritage.
Yes, it is partially my heritage. I think I'm like 3% German or something.
Dude, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Nah, no. Not nearly as German as you, Weaver.
Dude, I'm all German.
Yeah.
But I'm old German.
Like, you're 100%?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
But all of my heritage starts in this same region before there was a country here.
So you were just, it's German.
Right, it's German, but like before America German.
Yeah. Wow. That is actually really cool. That is the fun thing about living in such an old town. My family's from Michigan, and before that they were immigrants.
Yeah.
My great aunt blew up an Irish manor house during the Revolution in the late 1800s. So
right
that's
on.
Kind of my claim to fame.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
There's a statue.
Wow. All right.
I don't know.
You should.
There's definitely a plaque.
You should see if you can get a plaque next to it that says like "Made in Adventures."
This is an Odyssey podcast. The progeny. He can't stand up too fast, and he has an Adventures in Odyssey podcast. Basically, just as cool.
Yeah, he broke his wrist for years and didn't know.
Almost 3 years. It's almost 3 years. And the thing is, it's a bad break. It's not even like it's a half.
Yeah. But he plays soccer, which doesn't even use hands, so it's fine.
All right. That one's too far. All right.
So right. So there, he's then like, let me like get the like, did you get what you do? Oh, look, we got what we wanted or whatever. Like, they're like going through the bag.
Yeah.
Like, we got what we came for. It's not the money, whatever, that whole thing. Jenny is great and sarcastic. They ask her what her name is, and she says Abraham Lincoln.
Which is hilarious.
Then they like get to where they're going, unload her. They don't tie her up because they're like, where are you gonna go?
She's blind.
Yeah. They're like, we're on a third floor. Don't try anything stupid.
They're on the ground floor for sure.
Absolutely. She knows what stairs feel like.
Yeah.
And then she starts quoting the Gettysburg Address.
Yeah. They ask her a question, and she's like, 7 years ago.
Yeah. They start removing their disguises, pull off an eyebrow, it sounds like, or maybe a mustache. And then
they get fake eyebrows?
Yeah, okay, mustache. Probably a mustache.
In 2021, I would be like, okay, burglars, they use fake eyebrows, We live in the internet age.
Right. We need masks. So
yeah.
Your mustache isn't going to do you any good. You're already wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Eyebrows. And so this is then the scene where they beat the horse so dead that she is blind.
Yes.
Where they play the classic Old West Fun World game and they beat a dead horse. And see, if I keep making that joke,
it'll become a bit, yeah. We'll force the bit on the audience.
But I will be beating a dead horse about beating a dead horse.
At Old West Fun World.
The deadest of horses.
Yeah. It was never alive. Yeah, so this is where they're beating the dead horse about how blind she is.
Yeah, and they're just like, what, Goon 2 like takes off his shirt, and Goon 1's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm changing my shirt. She's blind. And he's like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And like walks into a different room.
It's like, I'm not going to do that. Well, I'm going to be over here then.
Yeah. I mean, Goon 1, the Goon, is definitely the better of the two goons, is what what's being established.
Of the kindest, yeah.
Yeah.
He's the one that doesn't actually want to kidnap the child, and the other one is just kind of
like, well, it's the best option. And he's like, no, but maybe it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And the other guy, and Goon 2's like, no, it's great. We love it.
It's so great.
But,
yeah, criminals love blind people. Classic.
That's what I always say. That's my famous catchphrase. So yeah, and right. So in addition to the blind thing, they just keep talking about how perfect she is
as a witness because she didn't see anything. She doesn't know where she is. She can't testify to what they look like. They'll be able to get off without a hitch. It wasn't.
She's not the perfect witness, sir. She's the perfect hostage.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect witness is the turn that we will get later when Ethan is like, "Hey, you're the perfect witness
because
you helped us solve
things.
It." Right.
Yeah. And smell things. Other senses.
Yes. They then are like, "Okay, we'll get rid of the car. Then you take her back in the pickup." Is it?
Yeah.
Is it Goon 2 who takes her back in the pickup or Goon 1?
It's forget. The good Goon.
It is the good Goon. Okay, so Goon 1 takes her back in the pickup.
Nobody will be suspecting a pickup truck.
And they're like, drop her someplace nice. Actually, why don't we just drop her at the police station? It's Odyssey. Yeah. Or like unnecessary risk, but sure.
Yeah.
So they no one will recognize us because we've changed our disguises. We'll drop her off. There won't be video cameras at the police station.
No, certainly not.
That's not a thing that they would do.
Not in Odyssey. So trusting.
Right. I mean, even Wits End has cameras at this point, right? So.
Do they? This is before Wits gets
later.
back. Yeah.
All right. Whatever.
Well.
Come on, police station. You should be more than 3 years ahead of Wit.
That is true. That is definitely true.
And so, they drop her off. Goon 1 takes her there. He kind of apologizes, but does call her the perfect hostage again. And then is like, and then makes like some weird thing of like whatever he says in like some obscure way, like you can get out. And then she's like, huh? He's like, you can get out of the car.
Yeah. Yeah. You can move on or go live your life. Oh, he says like, they're talking about how quiet and nice Odyssey is and like how trusting it is and everything. And he's like, well, go get out of the car, like go live your life. And yeah, it's an interesting moment because again, he is starkly very different from Goon 1.
Goon 2.
Oh, Goon 2. Goon 1 is good Goon. That's going to be real fun.
So, yeah.
So she gets left there, and we get the scene ends with her.
Oh yeah, she is like mildly panicked in a way that is really like it's really unsettling and like good. Like I'm glad they gave her that because she's been pretty like cool and collected and a bit like snippy, but that's it throughout this whole thing. And it is like she's just taking these criminals at their word that they dropped her off at the police station. Like she could be anywhere, and she's kind of calling out for help.
Yeah.
Her at her most vulnerable in this whole thing.
I don't know where I am. Can anyone help me? Like, yeah, it is in all the ways that up to this point she's been like, no, I can do my own thing, blah, 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 blah. She's actually like, I don't even know where I am. I don't really know what happened to me. And so then we cut to the police station with Officer Richard Quinn and Pat Ethan.
Right. Yeah, Detective Ethan, but is this at the police station or is it at their house? I read it as we are at their home.
House. Yeah, I think you're right.
Because they talk about like her being like calmed down and some stuff. It's also Odyssey. She's the victim in this. They probably like she's a kid. Well, they probably took her to her house and they're like, yeah. Talking to her in the living room is the feeling I get.
Okay. I agree.
And so they've already done like their debriefing, like the Odyssey people have. And then Detective Pat Ethan shows up and they're like a specialist in cases like this, and walk in and, she says hi to Jenny and, I, as the audience was like, oh, woman.
Nice.
I paused to write that down. I then press play, and they hit it over the head.
Yeah. Oh, I just assumed that you'd be a woman.
Right.
And she's like, screw you.
No, a man.
Oh,
her
I assumed
Mike,
you wouldn't be
I
a
guess
woman.
Jenny's dad was like, oh, when they said Detective Pat Ethan, I was expecting a man. And she's like, yeah, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
And it's... I mean, right, it's fine, but like...
When did this come out?
92?
Okay.
No. 94?
It's old.
95.
95. Wow.
Still, like it doesn't, because I, for what it's worth, also had that reaction in the year 2020, where I was just like, oh, I'm not expecting, like, they say Detective Pat Ethan, and I'm like, just baseline assuming man.
Yeah.
The thing that I didn't need was the show then acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Like it's good enough to do the thing. Like,
to let it be a little bit more subtle and nuanced.
Right, to let that reveal happen for the audience, but then to underline it within the show seems clunky. Mm-hmm. And it's also like, even though I thought it, and like I would say it for a podcast, I would never say that to a person's face.
No,
be like,
never.
oh, I expected you to not be the person you are because I'm sexist.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, because of gender roles. That's not a thing that But it is unnecessary to underline it, in my opinion. But,
I definitely agree. I mean, and it's obviously a product of a different era, and kind of have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. The other thing that when Captain Quinn's kind of filling in Detective Ethan before they go in, he mentions that like, oh yeah, we debriefed her and like got all the information. Also,
she got a
Doc
clean
Morton, right? Clean bill of health from Doc Morton, and I was like, Doc Morton, always Doc Morton. It's the only doctor in Odyssey. Doc Morton is also Mary's doctor in Unto Us a Child Is Born, which we just talked about. She's also the mother of Isaac Morton, who is
a character.
Correct.
Yeah.
Who's
Isaac
the
the
Isaac
Chivalrous.
the whatever episodes, which we've talked about doing, and maybe will someday.
Who knows?
Time.
There's lots of Odyssey.
There's just so much Odyssey, guys. I don't know if you've picked up on this yet.
Yeah.
There's so much Odyssey.
It's an overwhelming amount for one single show.
Yeah. Which is why there's like 20 Odyssey podcasts.
That is, I guess so. And none of them are that successful, unfortunately.
Yeah. There is a ceiling to what you can accomplish being a podcast about a niche piece of media.
Yeah, well, and have that niche piece of media be a paywall, radio drama.
For Christians, popular in the 90s.
Why do we make the show? Because we like Odyssey.
Yeah, well, and because we like each other.
That is true. I do like you.
Because I'm having fun.
I am having fun, too.
When we stop having fun, the show ends.
Yeah, that's a very
Look forward to our final episode on the Rydell saga in 3 weeks.
Yeah. We're done now. We give up. Clearly, there's nothing more for us here in this universe. It's time to move on for our Winnie the Pooh podcast, in which we go through the new adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Poohcast.
Oh. Stay tuned for my solo spin-off podcast in which I steal Dylan's name. Not Dylan Weaver, the Winnie the Pooh cast. Pooed.
So, right. So then Jenny's like, so I heard, Officer Quinn say that you specialize in cases like these. Are those cases involving robbery and kidnapping, or cases with blind people? And Detective Ethan says, honestly, both.
To which I wonder, how many?
Wait,
what is the
I
crossover?
was so confused. She's from the county police.
Yes.
She's not like some national, like, this is too niche, much like this podcast. This is too niche for her to have this. Like, it could be like,
maybe there's a lot of blind people.
She could specialize in, like, robberies gone bad, or like situations with like disabled kidnappees, even or just like cases involving people with disabilities.
Yeah,
like that is a valid thing.
I'm
but
pretty
like,
sure it's an entire profession.
But like, boy oh boy, do they
not
just
do
like,
that?
No, I am a specialist on robberies turned kidnappings involving blind people, and I'm like, No, you're not.
Thank goodness you're here.
I don't, yeah. I mean, truly, you are the right person for this case.
Yeah.
Also, how?
Did they make you in a lab just for this episode? They did. Okay.
I mean, and maybe this is just Odyssey acknowledging the fact that, like, there are too many people on staff at police departments. And this is their subtle way of being like, look at the tax money being wasted on having this role. It came in handy once, but then they have to keep paying her year round.
At the state level.
Yeah. County
level, even worse.
So yeah, and then
unless the population is like exclusively blind people.
Right. And then Detective Ethan's like, look, like, I want you to create, like, we're going to work through this. You're going to create a sound picture of the whole event. Mm-hmm. And then we get Quinn steps out to take a call about a car. The car was found on Route 29 by Odenton. Yeah. Which I don't know. I imagine.
Home of the Ogres.
Yes. Home of the Ogres. Who could forget? Also home of the Odenton bug. It's got to be one of the first references to Odin.
Odenton? Yeah.
To Odenton. Like,
well, because it predates. It
predates. It predates Novacom. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't remember. Like, yeah. Anyways, cool. Big fan of Odenton. Go Ogres. Buy our merch.
Buy our merch.
And so yeah, Ethan's operating under the assumption then that the car was stolen, because it was just like ditched in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, look, if it's there, probably cross-referenced with any stolen car reports. It's probably, it's probably one of those. And then we leave this scene and go to a frantic Eugene bursting into Holstein's books and screaming for Katrina.
In true Eugene fashion, he's very flustered for reasons we find out later are not entirely Katrina related, but it does come across as very affectionate in this. I mean, paranoid, definitely paranoid, but
yes, he is cute when he's worked up.
He is, so cute. Mm-hmm. So this is when it gets established that Eugene was robbed too.
Right. So he's like, I was at the police department and they said that you had been robbed. And she was like, why were you at the police department? And he was like, well, someone broke into my dorm.
I was burgled.
Yes. They took my laptop, not my computer, not my stereo, not my money. But they did take my car.
Yeah. Fun.
And then Captain Quinn walks in and so he says they took my car, and us as the audience go, oh, it's going to be his car. Yeah. And then Captain Quinn walks in and goes, hey, Eugene, we found your car. It was the getaway car. Dun, dun. Commercial break!
Yeah!
Also, though, how did Captain Quinn know Eugene was at Holstein's books?
Well, Eugene was probably vaccinated, and when you get vaccinated, they put little microchips in you so that they can track everywhere you go.
That makes perfect sense. Yep. Mystery solved.
Mystery solved. Thank goodness.
So we do commercial break, and there's a great John Campbell score, and we come back, and we hear a scene that we already heard, and we're like, huh? Wait, didn't we already hear this? And then Detective Ethan interrupts and is like, all right, Jenny, I need you to concentrate. And this is when the production design goes through the roof.
So good!
So she's like, I want you to listen to, like, the sound, like, think about the sounds outside of the car and, like, start to play those back for me. And so, like, we slowly hear it layered in, like, the sound of the car driving and then, like, a horn in the distance and, like, the car stops. And she's like, okay, there was, like, a train tracks and a train goes past and Ethan's like, is it a slow train or a fast train? And Jenny's like, slow train. She's like, okay, probably freight
train, yeah.
And Jenny's starting to get super excited.
Yeah.
Which I love. It's so cute.
Well, the Ethan, a detective, she a detective? I don't know.
Yeah, Detective Ethan.
Ethan and Jenny, their dynamic is so good because she sees Jenny for what she is, which is different but not less capable. There are things that, like, she kind of brings up the fact that she was learning in school that she has other senses that are of heightened development because she can't see. Right. And she knows that there's more in there, and she believes that Jenny can uncover this from the very beginning, because Jenny even is hesitant at first because she's like, I already told them everything. She's like, no, I think you know more than you think you know.
Yeah.
And so this is when this is like finally coming together, and she's pulling out these clues from the scenes.
It's so good. It shows, like, obviously, like, we're dealing with her kidnappers, the goons, underestimated Jenny. However, there's also a level of, like, Jenny underestimating herself that we get to see here unfold. And they did such a good job of, like, Detective Ethan being really kind and considerate. And honestly, casting a woman to play this part was a really good move, because she gets to be a smart, capable detective who also, like, can play this more maternal side and be really, like, helpful and kind towards Jenny.
Well,
it's not
she's
like
also got a chip on her shoulder in the same way that Jenny does, which I think makes her more approachable.
Yeah, that's fair. It's really good. Like, I like it.
It's very well done. This is when they dissect the scene and the conversation that is recounted in a car earlier. And, you know, they kind of establish that what the audience already knows, which is they were not robbing the store for money.
Right.
That there's an
this
envelope and there's something inside.
And Jenny's like, well, maybe the book was stolen by, like, a jealous collector, and starts to kind of fall down this rabbit hole. And Ethan, to her credit, is like, look, like, let's stick to the facts, kind of reels her back in, and then but reiterates the idea that, like, stealing money was definitely a ploy to distract from them taking the book, which Holstein does say that they took the book, but But yeah, this is them kind of piecing that all together. And it's really good. And so I want to take this moment to do a slight movie sidebar here.
Okay.
If everyone's cool with that. So there's a movie from 1992 that I'm really fond of called Sneakers.
Oh. Okay.
It is a heist movie. One of the members of the heist, played by David Strathairn, who's an amazing character actor, plays this blind guy. There is a scene in which, so Robert Redford's the main character. Mm-hmm. He is kidnapped. He's thrown into a van with a bag over his head. Mm-hmm. And there's a scene where he works with David Strathairn's character, who's blind, to recreate the sounds, like to go back through and think about all the sounds that happened while he was there, and
that's so
use
cool.
that to, like, figure out where he went, which is what they're doing in this. Mm-hmm. And Sneakers was a pretty big movie, and this is 3 years afterwards, so you have to, like, wonder if there was some inspiration drawn from that. It is. I
hope so.
When I first saw Sneakers, this is what I thought of.
Really?
Where I was like, oh, this is like, right, this is where I first saw this sort of thing done.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's so much similarity there that I have to wonder if there was, like, and not like, oh man, Odyssey plagiarized or whatever, but just like, it's a cool place to draw inspiration from. It's a good idea. Like, go for it. And maybe it's just parallel creation. But I thought of that, and if you haven't seen Sneakers, go watch Sneakers.
It's a great plug. Quality shoe. Good for walking as well. Or sneaking, perhaps.
Yeah. Also, that movie has a stacked cast.
Does it?
Ben Kingsley, River Phoenix, James Earl Jones.
Okay.
It's
so they've got everybody. That's fine.
It's great.
Go watch Sneakers.
Yeah, please do. And then tweet at us and say, "Hey, I watched Sneakers
and I hated it. It's all your fault."
Yeah, I mean, you're more than welcome to.
Dylan doesn't run the social media anymore.
Yeah, Andrew will pass it on to me though if it's entertaining. So
yeah.
And then so we then jump from this scene to Eugene at the police station. He's looking over the car with the police officers. They weren't able to find anything. all the fingerprints in the car are Eugene's. And Eugene's like, well, have you tried analyzing the dirt? That's a different dirt than what's usually on my car when I go between.
I know my own dirt. Thank you very much.
I love it. We had somewhere in like Novacom, right? Is there not a dirt subplot?
There was the whole bit with Tom for mayor and the soil samples and doing all that.
Soil samples in that.
And then there's rocks in is that Through the Looking Glass? Is there rock analysis in that one? We've covered a lot. Yeah. We've covered a lot of Eugene being interested in
right. We've covered so much mystery Odyssey.
Yeah.
That I'm like, man, I feel like we've kind of done. Oh no, I was thinking about all like the analyzing the dirt in the tunnels at Wit's End.
Yes,
is what I'm
exactly.
thinking of. Yes.
With the mysterious sediment.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also like this isn't the first like car theft Odyssey we've covered because there's the whole Tercel.
Oh yeah. Forgot we covered that whole arc.
Mm-hmm. And so there's
peculiar clay in the wheel wells.
Yep.
It's not normal.
Mm-hmm. And Quinn's like, Eugene, have you ever considered working for the police? And Eugene's like, what does it pay? He's like, yeah, you couldn't afford the pay cut.
Yeah. Which I don't know what Eugene is making, but I was curious and I looked it up. I mean, police officers, they make more than teachers.
Yeah. Police officers do well enough. I guess Eugene is like a super genius working at but he's like he's still a college student.
Yeah, he doesn't have his doctorate to my understanding. I mean,
he doesn't. Because that is a weird thing in this episode is reminding myself that Eugene lives in a dorm.
Yeah.
Like he keeps talking about like stuff being stolen from the dorm.
Can you imagine him going to the cafeteria and everything? Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, and so it's at this point that Quinn is like, did you take a look at like what else could be missing from your dorm? And Eugene was like, well, like, no, like I just looked around quick before coming to you. And he's like, we should probably like double back. And Eugene's like, well, can I get a ride?
Yeah, I don't have my car.
Yeah, okay, done. And so they get there and Eugene realized that all of his floppy disks are missing and his hard drive, which those floppy disks were just a backup of his hard drive.
Yeah.
His hard drive has been reformatted.
And erased. It's all
that is
gone.
What reformatted.
Yes, it's
dun dun dun.
The nightmare of losing all of your data.
Yeah, horror.
It's
True horror.
Actually, as somebody who's lost all my data several times.
Yeah, as someone who's lost whole episodes of this podcast, I'm speaking for both of us.
Yeah, yep. It's not fun. So truly can empathize with Eugene's distress here.
Yeah, and
but it's all of his work, which people do be just loving to steal Eugene's work.
Mm-hmm. So the mystery is getting bigger and bigger. We've got this idea that there's someone who hired some goons to steal a first edition book.
Yep.
But then they also broke into Eugene's room and took all of his work. It's very, very peculiar. Who knows where it will go? You'll have to tune in again next week. This episode is jam-packed with stuff.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I'm curious because it's a 3-parter. I know that it's not going to end the way that I think it is, and because I don't really remember. I mean, presumably, Jenny helps them catch the criminals. Just a shot in the dark.
Right.
But other than that, like, as far as the logistics of what happens and who's behind it all and everything, I don't remember specifics of it. But this episode definitely sets up a lot for the upcoming 2 episodes in a way that 3-parters don't always. So yeah, a lot of good to take from this one.
Yeah, I'm very excited for what's to come.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I feel like
tune in next week. It's gonna be good.
Very excited.
Keep building this up. Obviously, plug-in sneakers. Andrew, you got anything?
I'm a big fan of a little Christian record called Semler, or by Semler, called Preacher's Kid.
Previous episode of the show. It's Preacher's Kid.
Oh, great tie
on this album.
Yeah.
Actually, so the Preacher's Kid episode went out. Like, I was editing that episode right around the time that
the
Preacher's Kid EP dropped, and it was weird.
Yeah, it's a very cool EP. It's written by an LGBTQ Christian, talking about her experience in the church and what that was like for her. It's very raw and emotional and kind of a Phoebe Bridgers, Julian Baker, sad girl way, but I really like it. It's been super cathartic to hear other people talk about kind of, you know, church culture and kind of the weird things of, like, there's a song about youth group lock-ins and stuff like that, which is
so good.
Really fun for me to hear and think back on all those crazy things. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would highly recommend checking it out. She's a really cool independent artist and seemingly a genuinely nice person. So yeah, there you go.
Big
Dylan recommended it to me. That's why I listened to it.
That is very true. Additionally, I would like to plug, there is new merch on our merch store.
That there is.
I may have hinted to this earlier, or I may have cut that, but friend of the pod, Michaela Moeller, has designed 4 new shirts that are up for sale now on our store. Buying those throws a little money our way, throws a little money her way. Also, you just get to look cool and wear Wad Fam Chalk Pod merch, and we think that's really cool.
Yeah, so. I want to look at the different the new designs. We mentioned the Old West Fun World.
Yep. We've got an Old West Fun World design. There's a large rag boy on a church sign that looks awesome.
Yeah, that one turned out so well.
There's a Moxie, a vacation for your mouth.
Yes, that's the one that I'm gonna buy.
Which is an extremely one-off joke that Andrew made on an episode. I don't even know which one.
Me neither.
But there's a shirt of it now.
I believe,
or you can get it on other stuff as well. That's the beauty of TeePublic is shirts, but also you can get it as a sticker or a pin, or maybe you want it on a notebook
or something. We've got swaddle options. Your newborn child in.
Hey, you do you, man.
Yeah.
And then
FBI, we got Frank's Breakfast Inn. Finally,
a classic looking Frank's Breakfast Inn shirt.
I mean, it's great. Classic yellow text on whatever color background you want.
Yep. So go out there, buy some of that.
At least take a look, because it's fun.
Yeah, at least look at it.
Link is going to be in the description.
If you end up picking any up, shoot us pictures.
I like to see them.
It's fun to see it out in the wild.
Yeah.
And then one last thing, we've got a new review.
Oh, great!
So
it's positive.
Yeah, this is a 5-star review from AIO Fan 17.
Nice,
fantastic podcast. This is by far one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. Dylan and Andrew do a great job of being critically kind, acknowledging the overall positive feelings so many of us associate with Adventures in Odyssey, while still keeping a keen eye on the episodes they review. I really enjoy their perspectives and always look forward to new episodes.
Aww.
Yeah. Thanks, AIO Fan 17.
Thank you. Wow, the 17th fan of Adventures in Odyssey. This is a full-grown man.
And yeah, if you want to leave us a review, drop that on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you do it on Apple Podcasts in the US or Canada, we'll see it. If you do it otherwise, also tweet at us or email us or DM Andrew on Instagram. Just do something so that we can track it down, because we want to see these. We want to be able to, acknowledge you on the podcast, give you our thanks. And
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Right, thanks to all the people who have reviewed us. That's huge.
And all the people that have listened to this silly show over 100 episodes we've put out.
Yeah. You guys rock.
Thank you so much for being in this corner of the internet with me.
It's a good corner. So with all that being said, we'll be back next week for episode 310, The Perfect Witness, Part 2.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
WadFam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at WadFamChalkPod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. The Perfect Witness Part 1 was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Acebo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.